Let's talk about where to host your podcast and or your podcast clips. So this section I found particularly interesting because I struggled with this a little bit when I was getting this podcast going initially. So for starters, do you want to put your podcast on an existing established channel that you maybe already have? Or do you want to set it up on a brand new channel and basically start from scratch? Now, a little bit of a background story here, a little personal anecdote of mine. When I started this podcast, I initially was uploading my episodes to an established channel that I have. It's just the Creative Control Room. I think it was just named my name originally, or Hayfie Digital or something like that. I don't know. It's been so long, but I was uploading it to a channel that I had already had. And right before the pandemic, I went on a creator retreat. And on this creator retreat, one of the hosts of it was a guy named Jevin Dovey. That name may sound familiar. He's an established YouTuber. He does adventure films. He does a lot of creator tutorials and things like that. And he's a wizard when it comes to just YouTube analytics and things like that. So one of the exercises that we did as a group is we pulled up our channels and we just started talking about the channels, and he went through and kind of gave some pointers about how, the branding and things like that. And I started talking about how I just launched a podcast and how I was uploading the episodes to this channel. And he stopped me and he said, "You're going to kill your channel." And his rationale behind that was, if you think of it like this, the content that I was uploading to my channel at the time, not podcast not included, was primarily tutorial or vlog style content. The videos were like 5 to 15 minutes in length. They were edited to be fast moving, and, kind of get the information out there quickly. All of a sudden now I'm uploading this new type of content, which is, the videos, the podcast episodes are a little bit longer, more like 30 minutes or so on average. There's more talking head. The pace was a little bit slower. As a result, I wasn't seeing the same amount of views on those podcast episodes as I would see on a typical video that I would normally upload. And if you do that and you're doing that often, chances are the YouTube algorithm is going to pick that up and start to realize, oh, not as many people are watching your content anymore. And as a result, YouTube may decide to, not recommend your videos to as many people as possible, and you could end up just tanking your channel. So that ended up being, his recommendation was to create a brand new channel for the podcast, which ended up being good advice. But in going through this guide, I realized that it was actually a little bit more complex than that. In other words, depending on your particular scenario, there's some additional questions that you might want to ask yourself before you decide whether or not you want to be putting your podcast on a brand new channel. So we'll go through some of the recommendations for why you should upload your podcast to an existing channel or why you should put it on a new channel. So for an existing channel, if you have an existing established YouTube channel and you are considering publishing your podcast to that channel, these are reasons why you should do that. First of all, your podcast is new and maybe doesn't have an audience yet. The audiences of your existing channel and that of your podcast, or at least what you think the audiences will be, are similar between the two, the channel and the podcast. Maybe your podcast is viewed as an extension of your channel's content strategy. That's something that you would kind of have to consider and how those two would blend together. And then your podcast is similar to your current channel format and style. So if the content within your podcast is very similar to the content you're already uploading, then maybe you might want to upload it there. In my case, as I mentioned, it was very different, so probably wasn't the best solution for me. On the other hand, reasons why you should start publishing your podcast to a brand new channel that's dedicated just to the podcast. Some of those reasons might be your podcast already has an established audience. Maybe you've been an audio podcast for a while. You've started to grow an audience there. It might be better to create a new channel specifically for that podcast versus trying to merge that audience with the audience of an existing channel. Maybe your audiences are different between your podcast and your existing channel. The content types are very dissimilar. Again, that was my case. Or maybe your podcast struggles to reach a consistent audience on the existing channel. Again, I was seeing the same thing. You upload podcasts to your existing channel, not getting the same amount of views. If that happens, good indication that you might want to move it to its own place and start building a fresh audience over there.